What's up, guys? So the second episodes of both Supergirl and Batwoman After Crisis on Infinite Earths have been released, and as you probably can already tell, instead of doing reviews now, I'm going over all the Easter eggs and retcons from the new episodes post-Crisis. For Supergirl and Batwoman, I put them together because Batwoman specifically, so far, there hasn't been enough to make its own video, but also because they came out on the same day, and I'd rather make just one video about both of them. With that in mind, though, I'll talk about the Batwoman stuff, the Easter eggs and retcons from the episode, which there weren't really many, and then I'll get to Supergirl, which, just like the last episode, there were quite a lot. With that in mind, let's begin. So this episode is Season 1, Episode 11, titled An Unbirthday Present, and as you can probably tell based off the title, it does take place during Kate's birthday, which is also during her twin sister's birthday, because obviously they're twins, they're born on the same day. This does confirm that they were born in January, which isn't really significant, but at least there's that. We know that they were born sometime in January 1990, and if it's based off the same date that this episode was released, then that's January 26th, 1990. Now this isn't significant, except we do probably kind of learn when the certain events of previous episodes do take place, specifically the only ever appearance of the Earth 1, now Earth Prime Batman. So later in the episode, we learn from the alternate Earth Beth Kane that the night or the day that she went missing and their mother died on this Earth, or at least on her Earth where their mother died but she survived, it took place on their birthday. It took place when they were coming home from their bat mitzvah at the age of 13, which by the way is either a plot hole or maybe things are very different on the Earth because bat mitzvahs are not at 13, they're at 12. It's bar mitzvahs that are at 13. But anyway, they were coming home from their bat mitzvah, which means that this was around their birthday, which means it was probably in January, which just solidifies parts of the timeline. That means that exact event took place in January 2003, as opposed to what we knew before, which was just sometime in 2003. I should probably say that I did actually look it up on the Arrowverse wiki. Apparently, it was previously confirmed they were born in January, so that isn't really a significant reveal here. The only thing is that the events that Batman appeared in the flashback, those were in January, and that's what we can determine based off this episode. So then there's Supergirl Season 5, Episode 11, titled Back from the Future Part 1, which is obviously a reference to the movie Back to the Future 1, and then the next one's going to be Back from the Future 2, which is a reference to Back to the Future 2, with there not being any Back from the Future Part 3. Anyway, the episode begins right where the last episode left off, where Brainiac 5 and Lex Luthor are now teaming up, which is already a pretty cool team up because those are kind of like the two biggest Superman villains, Lex Luthor and Brainiac. Even though this isn't Brainiac, it's Brainiac 5, who is a significantly different character. It is still interesting that those two are teaming up, but in this episode, right at the beginning, they add yet another pretty big Superman villain in Toyman. And I wanted to mention this because of how cool it actually is. The fact that we get Lex Luthor, a version of Brainiac, and then also Winslow Schott Jr., who in the DCAU specifically was Toyman, the main version of Toyman. It's really cool seeing these three villains, one of them not really a villain, teaming up. And just imagine what we could get from the Superman Lois TV show if Lex Luthor and then maybe a proper Brainiac, who's mentioned in this episode, as well as Toyman, team up all against Superman and his children. I think that would be something that would be really cool to see. And I just wanted to mention that these three Superman villains teamed up. So not that much later to the episode, Lex Luthor goes to Toy-Con because they're unveiling his new action figure, and he's getting an action figure because he's considered on Earth Prime one of the greatest heroes on the planet. Now, we learn actually in these scenes how or why he's considered such a great hero, and it directly connects to the events of Supergirl Season 4. In that season, Lex Luthor manipulated events to make a war between the United States and Cosnia just so he can stop that war and be considered a hero. On Earth 38, he wasn't successful since Kara Danvers and Supergirl were able to either expose him or stop him, and he was then considered a villain. But it's clear that on Earth Prime things went differently since he is considered a hero. I expected it to be revealed that the Supergirl Season 4 events just never happened, but William Day did mention in this episode, like right in these very scenes, that he wrote an expose on Lex Luthor, calling him saying he has a very bloated ego, but saying that his dealings with Cosnia, and he mentioned things like that, which basically confirms that the events of Supergirl Season 4 did happen, but in the end Lex Luthor was successful, or at least to a point. He didn't end up killing Superman as he intended, and he didn't end up getting power in the White House or whatever, things like that, but he did become a hero to the eyes of the public, and that in that specific thing he did succeed. during the events of Supergirl Season 4. However, it's possible that the reason he was able to succeed is because he didn't already have this bad reputation that he had on Earth 38. Maybe before Supergirl Season 4 and before Supergirl as a whole, he never had this rivalry with Superman, and he never killed a whole bunch of people, and because of that, the events of Supergirl Season 4 went so similar, but in the end, he was able to succeed, especially in public opinion, because he didn't already have a bad reputation, and I'm guessing that's probably the biggest difference between the Earth 38 and Earth now Prime Lex Luthors. So we are then reintroduced to Windshot, or really introduced to the Earth Prime version of Windshot, who has, I'm guessing, not really been all that affected by the crisis. Like, yes, he thinks that Lex Luthor is a hero, but other than that, I don't think there's really any real differences. The reason he's so different is because he spent probably years in the future as a member of the Legion. He's now probably named Toyman. I mean, I don't know what his superhero name is in the future, they never reveal it, but I'm guessing it's probably Toyman. He has a costume with a pretty stupid looking mask, but the costume it's simplistic, but it's fine. And he doesn't have powers, but he gets certain abilities like flight from his Legion ring, and it seems like abilities that are similar to Dreamer's abilities, or maybe Dream Girl's in the future. Now, right off the bat, we learn that he is married to somebody named Isla, and they have a daughter named Mary. So in the comics, there's a character named Isla Rand, who is basically the only Isla in the entirety of the DC universe, specifically also the only Isla in the 31st century, but she's Lightning Lass, the twin sister of Lightning Lad. Lightning Lad is one of the founding members of the Legion of Superheroes. However, on Earth 38, and probably also on Earth Prime, he's either not a member at all, or he's just a member who joined later. But Isla Rand was actually previously mentioned as a friend of the Legion during Supergirl Season 3, but considering she's a member in the comics, it was heavily implied that she's also a member here, and this either basically confirms it, and they're probably the same person, or maybe it's just an indication that that is indeed true. Now, we don't know that they're the same person, but I mean, what are the chances that there are two Islas in the future, and what are the chances there's a Legion of Superheroes connected character named Isla who isn't Lightning Lass? I highly, highly doubt it, meaning in the future, Windshot married Lightning Lass, and they had a daughter together named Mary. And something that's pretty significant out of that is that we kind of get our first look at Lightning Lass, or Isla Rand, through this image where Windshot shows them of his family, his wife and his daughter, which I gotta say, it's cool to see her for the first time, but it's also, I'm really excited for the prospect of what they're doing here. Like in the last episode, they unlocked Brainiac 5's real form, his green form, his more comic accurate form. In this episode, they brought other characters from the Legion back, revealed our first look at Lightning Lass, and it makes me wonder if they're doing something with this. Maybe this is leading up to a Legion of Superheroes TV show with Lightning Lass, with obviously Mon-El, Saturn Girl, Brainiac 5, and also Windshot. And honestly, again, that's something I would love to see, but maybe that's where they're going with all of these events, since this is 2 episodes in a row, and the next episode seemingly will also have some Legion of Superhero stuff as well, and all of that I think is really exciting. One minor, if not at all significant change from pre-crisis to post-crisis is that apparently Andrea Rojas has yet to be activated by the Leviathan in this universe, which is something that Lena directly mentions as a change between pre- and post-crisis, so I have to mention it here as well, even though, I mean, it doesn't really matter whatsoever. So, over the course of like the next 2 or 3 scenes, we get so many reveals about the new Earth, but also other Easter eggs and things that happen that are fairly significant. The first of which is that the reveal of the new HQ, the Super Friends HQ, and while they're there, John Jones, before he unveils the full HQ, unveils the name, he says that the League members from Crisis on Earth Part 5, like the Flash, Superman, Supergirl himself, Batwoman, White Canary, and Black Lightning, formed a team, and they had their own HQ, which Windshot says that in the future, that HQ is called the Hall of Justice, confirming that this is the Hall of Justice, which it was basically in everything but name. I mean, in design and function, in everything, it was the Hall of Justice, but now we get the official naming of the place, which I think is absolutely awesome, which means that if they're allowed to say the Hall of Justice, I don't think there's 100% correlation here, but maybe down the line, they'll be allowed to use the name Justice League, which I think would be awesome. So again, before they actually fully reveal the name of the HQ, we also see John Jones is what seems like his new costume, which looks like it's just a vest, like a bulletproof vest with the logo of the Martian Manhunter, and it seems like maybe he's just going to be wearing this costume going forward, and honestly, like, really, I do not like it. I get why they don't use the CGI form, because David Harrowitz specifically said they're going to use it even less so going forward because it's too expensive, which is, it's stupid, but it also is understandable, but at least the costume, I mean, the costume, even without the CGI form, is at least good enough, and to change it to this, I really don't like this change. Again, I get not using the CGI form because it's expensive, but what is the point of changing the costume? I honestly don't understand, as that costume, again, it's a good costume that is just a little bit incomplete without the CGI, but it's still good enough, so I really hope this is not permanent, and I really hope they go back to that old costume. And then, of course, there's the new HQ, which is being called the Tower, which is not something from the comics. It's a new place, as this is the HQ for the Super Friends, which in the comics, or not in the comics, actually in the original TV show Super Friends, which was not really Supergirl's team whatsoever. It was the Super Friends, the Justice League. Their HQ was the Hall of Justice, but obviously this is a very different Super Friends, so they're given a very different HQ, and it's the Tower, which again, not really similar to any like Justice League or superhero team HQ, but I do think it's really cool that they got their own HQ after all of these years, because previously they were in the DEO, before that they were in like some sort of closet in Catco or something like that, so I'm glad that they're getting their own HQ like the Bunker or like Star Labs. Also in this scene, Winn remembers his old Earth. So a little bit later in the episode, and this would be the next scene in the HQ where Nia Null sees the HQ for the first time. Nia meets Winn for the first time, and Winn mentions that he knows her like great-great-great-granddaughter, like a lot of great, so it would be like 1,000 years, so that's a lot of descendants, and yet the name barely changed from Nia Null to Nura Null, but in the future, Nura Null is a member of the Legion. Now in the comics, Nura Null is Dream Girl, and she has actually been mentioned previously on Supergirl in Season 5, also mentioned as a descendant of Nia's by Brainiac 5, but in this scene, it's only really just confirmed specifically that she is indeed a member of the Legion. However, we still don't know her code name. It's probably Dream Girl, which is what it is in the comics, but I mean, even with this extra detail, we still really don't know much about Nura, as at least with Isla Rands, we saw her for the first time in this episode. This really just officially confirms that she's a member of the Legion, which again, we basically already knew. Now, a little bit later in the episode, Winn mentions that he is the only human member of the Legion, and he gets his powers from his Legion ring, and nothing else. This does mostly fit the comics, as the characters who have already been confirmed to be of the Legion, Mon-El, Saturn Girl, Brainiac 5, Lightning Lass, Dream Girl, Chameleon, they're all from outer space or other planets, but one of them, who's been mentioned, Val, who in the comics would be Val Armor, who would be Karate Kid, is from Earth and is a human, which means that maybe in this timeline, he's either not a member of the Legion, or what's more likely is that he is not from Earth, he's from outer space. Another character would be Colossal Boy, who is another member of the Legion who is from Earth. He is a human, so again, either he's not a human in this world, or he's not a member of the Legion. And I do think this mention of from Windshot saying he's the only human being on the entirety of the Legion is interesting, because again, there are human characters on the Legion in the comics which would contradict his statement, unless they're either not members or they're not humans. So that is it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on everything I talked about, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.